Hey, Eagles fans, this is Chris Franklin from NJ Advanced Media, and welcome to the No-Huddle Show podcast, the show where we discuss all things related to the Philadelphia Eagles. Before we begin, I want to remind you that you can read our content on NJ.com/Eagles and make sure to bookmark that to get the latest Eagles news and analysis. Today, I'm once again joined by my No-Huddle Show co-hosts Bob Brookover and Cayden Steele. Well, it took nearly all 60 minutes, but the Eagles found a way to come back and beat the New Orleans Saints last week 15-12. Now they'll continue their NFC South-heavy part of the schedule by facing the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in a rematch of what last season's wildcard game, which I'm pretty sure that everybody that's associated in this area wanted to forget. We'll get into that game, but first off, Bob and Cayden, how are you guys doing today?
Hey, Chris, what's going on? Ready for week 4 in the Hurricane Helene? Hopefully get this game in. It sounds like it'll be cleared up by the time the Eagles get down there, but it'll be interesting to see how much of a mess Tampa is. One of my favorite places to go, Tampa, Clearwater area. Can't wait for the game.
Yeah, equally as excited. The only thing I'm nervous about, partly, the hurricane, and 2, going down there, I'm taking Frontier. And the last time I've took a Frontier type ride was Spirit, and that ride got canceled. So I'm praying that, I make it through on both rides without any cancellations or anything like that. But I'm excited to go down to Tampa for the first time and see what it's all about.
Well, I hope you guys have safe travels on that as well, too, and to everybody that's affected. We know there's a bunch of people that actually look at the analytics, and we have a few people that live down in Florida. So for all you guys that are listening down there, hope you guys are safe there riding through that storm. But you know what? I'm going to try something new today. And I haven't told you guys about this, but we're going to, in terms of the order, we're going to see who goes first with our questions. We're going to flip a coin. We're going to do a true game style on this one, too, and that one, too. And the winner gets a choice to take the first question, or just like in the games, we get to defer. So this week, we'll start with Bob. Next week, we'll go with Cayden. So, Bob, I want you to call it before we do it. Heads or tails?
Heads. Always heads.
All right. It's a heads. And it starts as a tail. So, Cayden, you get the choice. Do you want to take the first question, or are you going to defer?
I'll take the first question.
All right, you take the first question. Bob will get to the first question in the second half. All right, here we go. Our kickoff question opening drive question that we're going to start out with today is, the Eagles' offense was able to mount a comeback against the Saints without A.J. Brown or DeVonta Smith and Lane Johnson and Mekhi Becton. And you probably have to add Britton Covey based on his target share. And I'm pretty sure it seemed like that list will keep on going on and on and on. It seemed like the medical staff and training staff was very busy last Sunday. But however, now when you look at this game going into the Bucs this upcoming Sunday, they face a possibility of going into it without Brown and Smith. We already know Covey's on IR because of a shoulder injury. So, Cayden, what I'm asking you is, which remaining receiver can step up and have a good day against the Bucs defense?
Yeah, it's going to have to be Jahan Dotson to step up, because really outside of him, if A.J. Brown or DeVonta Smith, and Covey's obviously out, and look, more than likely Smith will be out, and we'll see about A.J. Brown. But if none of those guys are available, Jahan Dotson will be their best option. And he hasn't been involved in the offense really yet. I know he had the nice route that he ran that kind of freed up Dallas Goedert on that touchdown where all the Saints defenders ran into each other. So silently, he's been making an impact. But this game, he's going to have to be involved in getting more targets. And I think he will. He's the most talented wide receiver that they would have available in that scenario. Don't think, Johnny Wilson is ready to be a high volume guy in this offense yet. Not really confident in Paris Campbell. It's a real big concern. They don't have a lot of options, and they traded a 3rd round pick and a couple of 7s for Dotson, last month, with the expectation that, if one of those guys went down in A.J. Brown, DeVonta Smith, he could come in and step up. Now with the possibility that both are out, he's really going to have to step up. And look, throughout his career in Washington, it didn't really go the way that a lot of people thought it would go for him after he got drafted out of Penn State. He never really lived up to expectations, but he showed potential. As a rookie, he averaged 14.9 yards per catch, had 7 touchdowns. He's shown that he has some talent, and within this offense, he's going to have to become that guy, because if they can't throw the ball against the Bucs, it's going to be a rough outing. They have a decent pass rush with Yaya Diaby too, and a couple other guys, Joe, and they can mix guys in. So they're probably going to get after Hurts a little bit. So Hurts is going to need an answer other than Goddard. And if it's going to be a guy, it's going to have to be Jahan Dotson. We haven't seen anything truly yet. I mean, he's only been in the offense for a month, so how much of it does he really know? How comfortable he is? I mean, that's still to be determined, but he's got no options like this week. I mean, if he doesn't have the big game, I don't know how the Eagles, I mean, they might be able to find a win, but I don't know how they're going to have a ton of offense success without him having a big game.
Bob, what do you think? Who's going to be the one that steps up?
Yeah, well, you know, who's the Kansas City Chiefs' best receiver? Just because his tight end is in front of his name doesn't mean you're not a receiver. You're, of course, a receiver because you're eligible to catch the football. And the answer is Dallas Goedert, who was the best receiver in their last game. You know, after kind of being way under the radar the first two games of the season, you know, he had to step up, and he stepped up in a big way. You know, now we know he has that connection with Jalen. Obviously, he's going to get more attention than he normally, you know, but he was getting more attention in this game too. And he caught a 61-yard pass, and then three guys ran into each other and went down like bowling pins, but to make the 61-yard catch possible. But, you know, all day long, he was making catches, and they didn't have A.J. Brown. So, you know, they're going to pay attention to him. He's going to draw a lot of coverage, and, you know, maybe he'll draw some cornerbacks even on this day. But he's the guy who has to stand up, and maybe Saquon ends up getting the ball more. I wouldn't be surprised, you know, in this league, you're always trying to do different things and, you know, surprise a team. Maybe this is the week we see some more of Will Shipley packages where they try to get the ball to Will Shipley, or try to, you know, even Saquon, but have the, you know, we saw, I guess I was the only one in New England for that joint practice, but they did it quite a bit there. They ran some packages with Will Shipley, and they worked. And there's a lot of different things they can do off that. But to me, it's going to have to be Dallas Goedert, who's the guy, the primary receiver in this game. You know, Dotson would be number 2 on that list. We haven't really, as Cayden pointed out, we really haven't seen a lot from him yet. But hey, and this is the time where if you're an elite quarterback, it's what Patrick Mahomes has done. Tom Brady did it for years. You know, the Patriots, except for the Randy Moss years, never had that superstar receiver. They always had some good ones, but never had superstar receivers. And Tom Brady always made it work, always found the right guy. So there's a lot on Jalen Hurts this week too. But to answer the question, the question to me, the answer to me is Dallas Goedert. And I know we're going to get more to Dallas Goedert later as part of this fine script that our friend Chris Franklin has put together this week.
Wait 1 sec. I'm calling that. There's a flag on that because that ain't true. Anywho, in terms of the guy I'm looking at right now is Paris Campbell, and I'm just looking schematically, just looking at the way they line up, because Jahan Dotson, I know you can move him into the slot. I just have a feeling he's going to be more on the line this week. And then the other one is Johnny Wilson. I think he's going to play, but if you have him on the field, I don't think you particularly use him in the slot as much. So that way it leaves Paris Campbell. And I think especially when you're looking at potentially, if I'm Todd Bowles and I'm coming up with a game plan, there's not a lot of speed unless the Eagles decide to call up to elevate John Ross from the practice squad. There's not a lot of speed out there that's going to be remaining there. So I'm looking at, okay, if I'm him, I'm blitzing him a lot. I'm blitzing Hurts a lot and making him force to throw. I know Hurts has done well against the blitz, but I'm making him get the ball out of his hands quickly. And you're going to need your size guys. You're going to need guys who can get quickly open, especially in the middle of the field, if they're bringing pressure from that way. So that's why I think I'm looking at Paris Campbell to be the guy who has to come up and step up in this situation. But yeah, that's a tough going if you can't go without your top 2 wide receivers. If A.J. Brown can't go and DeVonta Smith, good luck, guys. Enjoy that. Now, going back to another question involving Smith and looking back at that hit that he had, Christian Boyd, he was fined yesterday. It came out that he was fined. And get this, the fine was only $4,600 for that hit on DeVonta Smith. Now, to give a comparison, C.J. Gardner-Johnson got fined $11,000. Probably is a repeat offender, but he got fined $11,000 for taunting. And so, Bob, I'm going to start with this and then to you, Cayden. Bob, should he have been suspended for that hit?
I'm going to say no, and here's why. I do, if you go back and watch it, and one of the points that they made is that the whistle had not blown. Jordan Mailata talked about it a lot. Mailata immediately pushed Christian Boyd after the play, was angry. A lot of Eagles were angry about it. But to me, and would never find this out. The league would never tell us this, but to me, the officiating crew was at fault in this thing because he's 4 yards beyond, from losing his where he caught the football, 4 yards behind there, 4 yards back, and the whistle doesn't blow. It's, this is a league that talks about keeping its players safe. Well, part of keeping players safe is the officials on the field need to do that. The whistle needed to blow. If the whistle had blown and he did that, we'll talk about the penning play on Darius Slay where the whistle had blown and he drove him 6-7 yards out of bounds, almost into the Saints bench. I'll be really interested to see what that fine is, because that fine to me should be more, should be a $15,000 fine, because you could really hurt somebody doing this. In this kid's case, in Boyd's case, I think he, I don't think he was trying to be dirty. I think he was trying to force a fumble, which, if I'm not wrong, he did fumble the ball, right? And they ruled his progress had been stopped. So if his progress had been stopped, well, then the whistle should have blown, and that we could have avoided the whole thing.
Yeah, I agree with Bob on this, which was just kind of a similar viewpoint. I thought the referees really screwed this one up. The play was dead probably for at least a few seconds. DeVonta Smith already had two guys on him. I don't think he was going anywhere in terms of forward progress at that point, and the whistle should have been blown. You can argue maybe the shot wasn't necessary. It probably wasn't. But at the same time, that's a rookie, probably in his head trying to make a play, trying to draw the ball loose, trying to do something. I feel uncomfortable calling a player dirty or saying it's necessarily the intent was dirty. It didn't look good. I mean, Sirianni talked about it. Watching the review of it was rough. I mean, it was a physical hit, and it didn't look good for sure. But at the same time, I don't want to question a player's integrity necessarily when I don't know that player. And two, like Bob said, the referees definitely could have handled that better by calling the play dead. I mean, the play just didn't have much potential to go farther. So I'm not really understanding why they didn't, but I'm not going to necessarily really scrutinize Christian Boyd for that, even though I know a lot of people are.
All right, cool. And we're going to stick on the offense right now. The run game seems to be picking up steam. Saquon Barkley is currently leading the league in rushing yards. He's also leading the league in touches with 73. Cayden, I'm going to ask you this. Is his workload sustainable at this clip, or should the offense start using more of Kenneth Gainwell and Will Shipley to keep him fresh?
Yeah, it's probably not sustainable over a 17-game stretch. I mean, through 3 weeks, it's not a big deal. But there's probably going to have to be some point in the season that they work in Kenneth Gainwell and Will Shipley. At the end of the day, Saquon Barkley, might be your best offensive threat other than A.J. Brown maybe. Like, if it comes to week 15, week 16, week 17, heading into the playoffs, hopefully, for them, if they make it, you want him to be fresh. And if you're giving him the amount of workload that he's currently on, which is on path for a historic number, I'm not sure if you'll get the best version of Saquon Barkley in December. So we've seen Kenneth Gainwell be a capable running back in the league as a pass catcher, and he could do a lot of different things for you. At some point, I expect them to mix him in a little more. I mean, Kellen Moore talked about it last week that it's something that they have to monitor, and they do. You still want Saquon to get a bunch of carries and him to be a focal point of your offense. So that doesn't mean you have to reduce the role significantly, but if you could just give, a Gainwell an extra drive or mix in Shipley or just take some of that stuff off of Barkley. If there's any scenarios in the next month where you have a big lead and stuff like that, I mean, that might be the ideal thing, is that you're able to blow out some teams in the next month and you can give Barkley a little bit of a rest, because he's going to need one. And I know he's been healthy this season and he's looked really well, but he's dealt with injuries in New York before. And that's the last thing that you want, is to have a guy of his ability who can take over games look, they don't win that game against the Saints without Saquon Barkley's 65-yard touchdown run. And just they probably don't beat the Packers without the way that he played in that game. So you need Saquon Barkley, and you need him to be healthy. And with the amount that he's getting, I'm not sure if that's sustainable either. So I expect him to move in Kenneth Gainwell and Shipley for an occasional series here and there as the season progresses. At some point, I don't think they're going to have a choice, and that would probably be the smart move. And I think it's better to have quality Saquon Barkley than quantity Saquon Barkley.
Cool. And Bob, I'm going to ask you this one here. Defensive end Brandon.
I want to answer that one real quick.
Okay. All right. Cool. Yeah.
They better rely on Saquon Barkley a lot this week because the Bucs have been terrible against the run so far this season. I think they're 25th against the run yards allowed, next to last in touchdowns, rushing touchdowns allowed. They were allowed 161 or 138 against the Commanders, 139 against the Lions, 136 against the Broncos. Hey, and you're down AJ Brown and DeVonta Smith. This is the week to ride Saquon Barkley to a victory, and then you got a bye following that. Not to mention, this is the week to ride him. As Cayden pointed out, at some point you're going to get into one of those games that isn't could perhaps be a little lopsided, and and that's when maybe you try to scale them back a little bit in those games, but this ain't the week to do it. Anyway, let's go.
Well, one thing also to watch as well too. I don't think it looks like they may catch a break as well too with Vita Vea. With him not being in the middle there, there's going to be.
He was on the field yesterday, but it didn't sound like he really practiced. So
yeah, the fact he was in street clothes and he had that brace on last week. He looking good on that one.
Yeah, he was in uniform yesterday. I saw. The Bucs are practicing as we speak because of the hurricane. They moved up their practice to 10:05. But anyway, go ahead. Let's continue.
All right, cool, Bob. When you look at Brandon Graham and you look at his performance, he's 36 years old. He's been playing very well. He hasn't looked like the player that we all thought that was going into his last season. He's been playing really well. We've also seen a dip in Bryce Huff's snap counts. Huff is still technically the starter. Still struggles a little bit. I still say that I don't know what cleats he's using, but he seems to be slipping a lot in his pass rushes. And I know some of his positioning, but he can't get traction on whatever field he's in. He needs to look at that. But anywho, Huff is still technically the starter because he's on the field for the first play. But we've seen the Eagles rotate these guys in. Do you think Vic Fangio should make Graham the permanent starter off the left edge and continue to let him get more snaps over Huff?
I don't. Here's my answer to that. It doesn't matter. It's kind of like the sixth man in basketball. If you're the sixth man and you play more than two other guys who are in the starting lineup, you're still the more vital player on the team. And at this moment, there's no doubt that Brandon Graham is more vital to Vic Fangio's defense than Bryce Huff is. It's not supposed to be that way. Bryce Huff is being paid to be an elite edge rusher. So in the long term, Bryce Huff needs to start performing more. But right now, Brandon Graham is he's the hot guy. He's still playing at an elite level. He's proving to be ageless. At some point, we're going to ask him, "You sure you want to retire, Brandon? If he's going to play this well?" He's just he's got such a relentless motor, especially for a guy who's 36 years old. And there are guys who played longer and don't want to give it up. I think Brandon is resigned to the fact that I'm ready to go. I'm ready to go enjoy my kids after this season and go to another line of work and. Which isn't going to be a problem for him to find. But to answer your question, no, it doesn't matter who's on the field for the first play of the game. It's much more important who's on the field for the last play of the game or critical downs. And so far, that player has been Brandon Graham. And that's not going to change anytime soon unless Bryce Huff can give Vic Fangio a reason to say, "Oh yeah, now's the time we need to unleash this guy because he's going to get us a big pass rush and a big play. He needs to start making those plays." Until then, Brandon Graham's not the starter; he's just the more important player.
Cayden, what do you think? Do you think he should be the starter?
Yeah, I have a similar viewpoint to Bob, where I don't know if he'll get the starting label, and I don't know. I think Vic will continue to say we're just mixing these guys in, including Bryce Huff. But when it comes to playing on those critical pass rush downs and especially against the run, Brandon Graham is significantly a better player than Bryce Huff is currently. We knew that wasn't going to be Bryce Huff's strength coming in. It was always going to be an adjustment. Look, and it was weird, in that game. First play of the game, he does a nice job of setting the edge on that first run by Kamara. And then on that third run, I think it was the third down where he goes down, he loses contain, and Kamara picks up a first down. So we've seen an instance where he could do it, and then we see an instance where he doesn't look like he knows what he's doing. And it's been an adjustment. I think the thing that for Bryce Huff at this point, and we haven't seen much of the pass rush that we saw, or a lot of people saw in New York, that people thought made him a potentially a special player going forward here. He was one of the more efficient pass rushers in the league with the amount of snaps that he played. I like to believe that he hasn't forgotten how to pass rush. And is he a perfect pass rusher? No, but I mean, he still has ability. I still think somewhere within, and maybe it's a good thing for him. And I know this is not what you want to do. Probably if you're Howie Roseman, you just gave this guy $17 million a year, but maybe reducing his role to a rotational guy, taking the starter label off of him, just letting him focus on his pass rush again. That's what made him good in New York. Maybe you take some of these rundown responsibilities away from him so he doesn't have to overthink as much. I mean, I haven't talked to him this week, but I mean, I don't know if he'd be willing to say it, but I feel like part of it is he's overthinking. I mean, you get paid a lot of money. That's a lot of pressure. And now you're playing a new role. And if you're constantly thinking about the run and you're struggling against the run, I don't think your pass rush is going to really come together either. So if you can just kind of reduce some of his responsibility into just being a situational pass rusher for now, like you got him here for 3 years, and then kind of work on the rest of it over the next year. And hopefully that's something he gets better in year 2 and year 3, if he's still here of that contract. Then you're probably happy with that. But for now, just let him get back to the basics of pass rushing. Give a lot of those downs to Brandon Graham and Josh Sweat, and even Nolan Smith. Look, Nolan Smith, not a great pass rusher yet. It doesn't have a lot of tools in his arsenal, but he's been pretty solid against the run this season. So even that guy like that, you can take let those guys play against the run, and just let Bryce Huff's, just get back to just being the pass rusher that he was in New York, and everything else maybe will come together later. So I think it could be a good thing, even though the money tells you that he should play a bigger role.
See, for me, I'm looking at this in a way of I'd sit him. I'd actually make him the reserve, the backup. I know, quote unquote, you can still bring him in, but I'd make him the backup only for like a couple of games. Probably, or at least I would do it this week and then to the bye, or after a week after bye, just to send a message going, listen, we wanted you to be a vital part of this team. We wanted you to be the guy that we can count on towards the end of a game and get some pressure. And that just hasn't happened yet. So I think that's one of the things, like, it's a wake up call. Like, we're not going to let you go. Okay, we know you paid you all this money. Okay, we're going to still let you roll out there. We're going to still start you out there. And I know we're only 4 games into it, but I think it's early. It's still early enough that if you send that message early on, maybe you get them a spark going, oh, okay, yeah, I'm playing like bleep right now. Maybe I go ahead and it jolts something in his mind. So I'd probably do it for a couple of weeks, but at this point, I'm at the point, like, especially with the snap count going down. Yeah, I'd make Graham the starter at this time, and then from there on, just see where it rolls. But yeah, interesting thoughts. And it was a good discussion. We reach halftime right now, and so now it's halftime. We're going to the run past option, where once again we're going to read this guy's statement. And to both Bob and Cayden, if they agree with it, they'll run with it, and they'll explain why. If you disagree, they'll pass on it, and they'll give a reason why as well, too. So after that, since you deferred to toss, Bob, his first question goes to you. Jalen Hurts will solve whatever puzzle the Bucs defense throws at him and get through the game without a turnover. Are you running or passing?
I'm complaining first because it was my choice, so I didn't necessarily have to go first. That's how it works, isn't it?
Oh, wow.
Is that not? Am I not right?
Cayden won the toss. He elected to go first.
First, right?
And then it's halftime, so you get the ball. You get the ball first, and then after halftime.
And if I don't want it.
Oh, you want to defer? Are you taking the win? You're pulling a Marty Morningwig on the run pass option? I mean, if you want to, all right.
I just want it to be known that it was my. I just want it to be asked.
I feel like we're back in Detroit right now. So okay. Would you like? It's your decision. Would you like to take the wind and give it to Cayden, or do you like to take the question and receive?
I'll go first.
Oh, jeez. Oh, that's tough one. Okay. Here you go. All right. So we'll restart this again. Are you running or passing that Jalen Hurts will solve whatever puzzle the Bucs defense throws at him and get to the game without a turnover? I'm
gonna run with it because of the Saquon Barkley factor. I've been riding the Saquon Barkley horse for months and months and months, and it's been good to me so far. I think Saquon's going to be a huge part of this game and really help out Jalen Hurts. He's played extremely well against the blitz. I think this game has some meaning to Jalen. He was weird yesterday when asked about going back to Tampa, a little more than 9 months removed from what happened there in that playoff game. And Jalen, you always like to say you either win or you learn. And I actually phrased the question to him that way yesterday. You always say you win or you learn. So what did you learn from that game? He's like, I'm not ready to answer that right now. Right now, to me, it's right. It's not about the past and it's not about the future. It's about right now. Told me that this game maybe means a little more to Jalen in your typical regular season week 4 game. But he's been terrific against the blitz this year. 84 his PFF rating against the blitz this year is 84.6. His completion percentage 72.7, 24-33 for 239. I think he feels like he's better equipped to handle the blitz than he's ever been. And I think he feels a big part of that is the Kellen Moore, Doug Nussmeier influence that he's had on him. I really feel like he believes that. And so I'm going to run with that. I think we're going to see a great game out of Jalen Hurts this week, and with a huge assist from not only Saquon Barkley but also Dallas Goedert. I think the Eagles are going to surprise the people and go down there and win this week.
What do you think,
even without those two, even without those two guys in the line, man, and that's a tall task. So
definitely is. Cade, what do you think? Are you running or are you passing?
This is tough. I'm gonna pass, but it's not because I believe Jalen Hurts won't have some answers. I think it won't be like the playoff game where it just looks like the offense has no answers for Todd Bowles' defense. But at the end of the day, Todd Bowles throws out a lot of exact blitzes, and he's a very good defensive coordinator. And look, the Eagles have been better against the blitz this year, but I mean, he's got their number in 2 of the 3 times against Jalen Hurts. So I don't feel confident running with it. I've seen Hurts turn over the ball in every single game with an interception so far. And look, you could argue last week whether it was DeVonta's or his fault, or I'm not saying the turnover has been egregious necessarily, but Tampa Bay's defense, I know the run defense hasn't been good, but I believe that, Todd Bowles can make a good game plan, especially without, if there is no A.J. Brown, if there is no DeVonta Smith, and if somehow they could slow down the run a little bit, not necessarily shut it down, but to slow it down enough where Jalen Hurts has to kind of press in this game. I think there's a decent chance that he finishes with another interception. It's been a little sloppy with the football this year. I think he's played well otherwise, other than just being a little careless with the football. And I think Bowles will, send a lot of blitzes. And I think he'll try to make him uncomfortable if he doesn't have his, top weapons out there. And Kellen Moore's I think he's a better OC than Brian Johnson was last year. So they'll have more answers for it. And I think they'll be able to solve part of the puzzle, but I don't think the whole puzzle will be solved, and I wouldn't be surprised if he throws a pick.
Yeah, well, one more point here, Chris. I'm going overtime and jumping in here, but Bo Nix just went 25 for 36, 69, completing nearly 70% of his passes against the Bucs last week for 216, and also ran 9 times for 47 yards and a touchdown. The Bucs can't stop the run. They just were just lit up by a rookie quarterback. Why can't Jalen Hurts and the Eagles do the same thing? Anyway, go ahead.
The thing I'm worried about is we said the same thing about the Eagles last week and week 2. Can't stop the run. They They kind of stopped the run a little bit. I don't know. It's something like that. But I'll go to this next one. Cayden, I'll start with you. This is the last one.
I get all the first ones.
No, you don't. No, you don't. He goes, we're going back and forth on this. This is the last one anyway.
The efficient stinks in this game.
Well, I'll talk. I'm the Walt Anderson here. All right, we're going to kid now. I'm the Walt Anderson. I don't know. Well, I'll take a week to discuss it. I'll look it over and say, okay, we've learned from our mistakes and do it next week again.
Go back to the rules committee, but go ahead. You can go first. I'm just waiting to kick Cayden's butt in this 2-minute drill this week after taking a bad loss.
Oh, this is getting competitive. I like it. Competition. I'm liking this. All right, cool. We may have to do this like around the horn thing. Might as well. They're about to go off. Anywho, let me stop before I get in trouble. Dallas Goedert will have more catches this week than the combination of Paris Campbell, Johnny Wilson, and Kenneth Gainwell. Are you running or passing with that?
Run with that. We saw him go for 10 and 170 against the Saints. And we talked about last week on the pod a ton. Where is Dallas Goedert? Why isn't he being used? Well, when DeVonta Smith went down, even before DeVonta Smith went down, the Eagles made a good job of just making sure that he was involved in their game plan. And he had the best, he was incredible last week. He showed you that, maybe he's slowed down a little bit. I'm not sure if he has in terms of just speed. I know Jordan Mailata, there's a clip of him saying, unhook the trailer, stuff like that. So maybe he's lost a step of speed possibly, but he's still a really good tight end. And we talked about it earlier, and Bob made a good point. And I didn't think about Goddard, being the wide receiver per se. I was just thinking about it and just who's actually labeled as a wide receiver, because I don't believe in any of the other guys yet. I don't believe in Jahan Dotson. I don't believe in Johnny Wilson. And I don't believe in Paris Campbell. Jahan Dotson hasn't caught a pass this year. Johnny Wilson, he caught one last week, but I don't expect him, to catch more than one or two. And Paris Campbell, he hasn't been a real productive NFL player in his career other than one season. He's dealt with injuries. He got lost his role with the Giants last year in a bad wide receiver core. I don't believe in any of these guys. I think there's a possibility that Dotson gets you 3 or 4 catches and makes some type of impact, more impact than he has the first 2 weeks. But Goddard could get 7-8 catches this week, and I don't think any of those guys are going to combine for that. And maybe he won't go for 170, but I wouldn't be surprised if Goddard has a close to 100-yard performance again. He's going to be the focal point of this passing attack. Sirianni's talked about it. It runs through 3 people. DeVonta Smith, A.J. Brown. Looks like, both of them could possibly be out. And that leaves one more person, and that's Goddard. And look, it hasn't looked like the offense has been run through him in the last year or so, but week 3 it did, and I think week 4 it's going to be run through him again. And he's going to have a big day and a better day than any of the wide receivers combined.
All right, nice. I'm liking the fire today from both of you guys. I'm liking this too. Bob, what do you think? But running or passing?
Yeah, he's wrong. Pass. And here's why. Jalen Hurts last week completed passes to 7 different receivers. He adjusted. He had a great quote yesterday. I should have used it about how he looked around in the huddle. He said, I never would have said it at the time, but I looked around the huddle and like, who are these guys in the huddle with me? We're all my guys. But he still managed to pull out a win. He did it by going mainly to Dallas. But he also had 2 completions to Paris Campbell, 2 completions to Kenneth Gainwell, and 2 completions to Jahan Dotson. So that's a total of 6. It's a rare week when Dallas Goedert gets 10 catches. I don't think he's going to get 10 again this week. And I think one of those guys, probably Dotson, maybe Campbell, gets like maybe 4 or 5 this week because they're going to be on the field more from the start. If neither one of those, if neither AJ or DeVonta play, so I think we're going to see those guys get more involved. I think Jalen wants to get them more involved. So I'm gonna pass on Dallas having more catches than those guys, and I think we're going to see those guys have. I think we're going to either see Paris or Dotson have a better game than expected, and maybe make more contributions than we expect.
Nice. All right. It's time for a 2-minute drill now where these guys are going to have 2 minutes to answer this question. If they don't finish, the whistle that you heard earlier in the show will blow and their time's going to be up. This week's question is going to go by basically what's happened in the last 2 weeks against the Atlanta Falcons and New Orleans Saints, with the decisions Nick Sirianni have made are we at the point where if we're going for a fourth down or trying to go for a third down, making some plays? And I'll start with you, Bob, with this one.
Well, flip a coin.
Oh my goodness!
Flip that coin.
No, it's not even. I can see it flipping a coin at overtime. We're still in the fourth quarter. Nah, it's just like going back and forth. It's like, see, the way I go back and forth so that way, because it's like a punt. You guys get possession. You punt, you get possession. That's why I try to do that. But anywho, back to the 2-minute question.
I don't ever punt.
Oh, you sound like this would be part of this question here. Are we at the point where analytics have played too much of a role as a tool for coaches to go for in situations that have not been used at the past? Bob, ready, go.
The answer is yes, because clock management doesn't play enough of a factor. We lived through the Andy Reid era, and Andy Reid is a Hall of Fame coach, but clock management was a problem for him. And we talk about, okay, go for it here. What do you do here? Do you run? We go back to the Atlanta game. On the third down play, they pass. There's no consideration for clock management. It's a good play. It was a good play. Yeah, well, it was a good play that didn't get made, but I still maintain if you run the ball and you run the ball under 60, you run the clock under 60 seconds. It was about the clock, not about what analytics says. Nick Sirianni was asked this question, and he said, "Well, what does it say about the clock?" And his answer was, "Oh, it doesn't say anything about the clock." Well, then analytics to me in that case is flawed. And we go back to the 4th and 1 in New Orleans last week. Okay, 4th and 1. You got a tush push that works. It was a long one, as Chris and I discussed before that we started the show. So maybe I had no problem with calling a variation of that play. Problem is going for it. There's 14 seconds left till halftime. So let's say you make the first down. You got 11 seconds and 1 timeout left. And let's say, Nick said, "Oh, I would add 2 shots at the end zone." Yeah, well, you still had no guarantee of getting 3 points. You had a guarantee of 3 points on Jake. Well, not a guarantee, but Jake Elliott's, I haven't looked up the percentage of how many times he's made a field goal from what have been the 30-something yard range. But that's close to 100%. Him hitting from that range, those 3 points, changes the whole complexion of the game. You go into halftime with momentum, you get the ball. Analytics doesn't say anything about it.
You almost had to fire. You almost had to fire. It was like you almost were at the end. You almost had to fire drill to get the field goal team on the field, but you ran out of time just by a second. I'm sorry. We can go look at the clock, but we can look at the tape to try and go back to New York to look at the tape. But to further review, the clock ran out. I'm sorry, my friend. You got good points, but you ran out of time. I'm sorry. Cayden.
All the good points were already made by then.
Oh, okay. Okay. Cayden, we are reaching 2 minutes for you. I'll ask the same question to you. Are we at the point where analytics have played too much of a role as a tool for coaches to go in for situations that have not been used in the past? Your 2 minutes start now.
Yeah, I think so as well. Analytics plays a key role, I think, in some of the decision making here, but at the same time, as a coach, you have to have a feel for things, and that's been my big thing over the last 2 weeks. And Bob, he covered a lot of that point where analytics maybe doesn't take into account that you have barely any time left on the clock, and realistically, you don't have enough time to really score a touchdown there against the Saints on that. Even if you pick up that 4th down at the end of the half, one odd play call could have just ran the tush push and didn't have to be, cute with it, but they were. They thought they would get him with that play, and obviously they sniffed it out, and then you don't get any points there with Jake Elliott. So, time is a part of it, and then just generally just a feel of things. Even in the Atlanta game, I know everyone has a different opinion of kicking the field goal on that 4th down or going for it. Obviously they kicked it, and the Falcons drove down and scored a touchdown, and I don't think it's the worst decision ever, but at the same time, if your defense hasn't been able to get any pass rush all game, and they didn't in that game, and you give Kirk Cousins enough time, I know he couldn't move around well in that game, but if he has time in the pocket, he could pick you apart. I feel like they could have gone for it, potentially in that situation. I know some of that's revisionist history, but it's a feel thing. Knowing your defense can't get pass rush, and the numbers is not going to tell you about time. How your defense is playing in that situation. I mean, analytics is just it's a statistic that shows the likelihood of, making it for a first down in this situation and that situation, but it doesn't tell you outside factors. And for that reason, I feel like maybe it has a little too much of a bigger role. It's still important and in no way should be vanished, from the sport. I mean, good teams use analytics, and the Eagles have been good, and it's been part of their motto for years. It's just being aggressive on fourth down. And but that's me. That's my point pretty much anyway.
Since you both decided to go ahead and go over the 2-minute warning limit twice there, we're going to overtime, which we pretty much do every week, but we're still going to use that as an excuse to go overtime. I'll flip the coin again since now we have a tie now. We can actually flip the coin now. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge, cough, cough. Anywho, once again, we'll go back to Bob since it's the same game. Bob, call it in the air, please. Please call it. What are you, heads or tails?
Heads.
All right, here we go. It is a heads. Are you keeping the ball, or are you going to pass it off to Cayden?
I'm going to go first. I want the ball.
Okay. Don't pull Hasselbeck. You want the ball, and we're going to score. Please don't do that.
This game's over. It's really already over. I just kicked some real butt in a 2-minute drill. But anyway.
My goodness, here we go. Here's the question.
I'll take some butt in overtime here too.
Here's the question. Tom Brady is calling the Eagles Buccaneers game this Sunday, and everybody knows the history and what have you. If you have an opinion on him being a color analyst, go for it. If not, hey, this is not my place to judge on that. But he's going to be the commentator for the game on Sunday. If there's a player currently on the roster not named Brandon Graham or Lane Johnson, because I'm not going to give you guys those easy ones right off the bat, but if there's a player on this current roster, who do you think has a future of being a broadcaster, and why?
Yeah, I was going to go with C.J. Gardner-Johnson or Jordan Mailata, but they would have to be on the X-rated channel. Whoa,
X-rated channel. X-rated. Whoa. Well, time out. X-rated?
NR17, whatever.
No, R-rated maybe for language. X, though?
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Although Jordan Mailata did have his shirt off when he was doing his post-game interview.
Oh, my gosh. I'm sorry. Continue, please.
Anyway, I won because look how I made you laugh. But anyway, the real answer here is what's my answer to everything about the Eagles? I'll ask, you go ahead, guys, you can join in. What's my answer to everything? What's always the answer?
Grouper burger?
No, well, the grouper burger is the answer when you're hungry and you're in Clearwater. What do you eat? But my answer to everything is Saquon Barkley.
Saquon Barkley.
He's a star, and stars become broadcasters, and Saquon certainly fits the mold. He's very smart. He's very well spoken. Very easily make that transition if he chose to be a broadcaster when his career's done. Maybe he could take Tiki Barber's job, which the Giants fans would just love. But there's the answer. It's an easy answer. Saquon Barkley.
Cool. Cayden, what's your answer to this one on this?
Yeah,
not X-rated one, please.
I wasn't going X-rated. I thought about Mailata too as well, but I mean, just for the fun of it, I won't go with Mailata. The guy that I'll go with is a guy that I'm not sure if he's a good football player yet, and I'm not sure how long of an NFL career he'll have until I see him, improve. But if the NFL doesn't work out, I could see in like 5, 6, 7 years, like Nolan Smith on like SEC Network. I think he does have good charisma, and he's a really good talker, and he says a lot of the right things, and I could just see him being in that type of role on like the SEC Network, talking about Georgia and stuff. So in terms of Nolan Smith would be the one guy I could see just covering college football or being on game day. That would be my one pick as well. The other sneaky one, I know this is kind of cheating, would be I think Jalix Hunt. I think he's a young guy. He doesn't talk a ton to the media. A lot of people probably don't know him, but I think he's got the personality that I could see him being involved in the media one day as well. And it's really early because he's only been in the NFL for like 5 months. So
Cayden shouldn't have even been allowed to answer because I scored a touchdown on the overtime drive to start.
We talked about X-rated people in the football field.
I scored a Cayden shouldn't even been allowed to go there. The rules are just not good here. We need to go talk to the competition committee and rewrite the rules.
Yeah, we'll reassess it in that one too after we get our minds together on that. See, part of me, going into the question itself, part of me at first thought about Tanner McKee. Because when I look at a broadcast, I'm looking at either, and there's some really good defensive back ones, some really good former defensive linemen, stuff like that. But to me, it's always quarterbacks at a position of the guy I'm really going to choose. So I thought about Tanner McKee and the way he was in Brazil, showed he had natural charisma and stuff like that, and he's a quarterback. So yeah, and my affinity for quarterbacks. One, I usually thought about him, like something like that for it. But then I also looked at the other part, and I'm thinking, who would be a guy who's the quarterback of the defense, a linebacker? I'm going to Kobe Dean because because I've talked to him in the past, and when you talk about breaking down stuff, and we'll see the guy's really insightful. And this is why I'm hope he stays healthy this year. The guy actually is really, really insightful, breaking down the angle stuff like that, saying diagnosing what he sees in front, and he's got the communication. He's able to do it. Former engineering major, so he's bright. So I'm looking at all that stuff. I'm like, you know what? I think he'd actually be pretty good in terms of like doing that job as a color analyst. I thought he might have a future as well too. But who knows? Maybe he and Nolan Smith, they go back to Georgia afterwards, and then they both they're both co-hosting down there, a show down there. Who knows? I don't know. Well, 46 minutes later, and craziness ensued. The show is over. I want to thank Bob and Cayden for being on. It was a lot of fun.
I got to go celebrate. Hurry up. I got to go celebrate my victory.
Oh, my goodness. Well, you got to be 1-0 every week. I guess, this is a tie. This is in this one, too. Both of you 0-0-1 with this new format. I don't know. It's like Drew, I feel like Drew Carey. We'll make it a point where this is the show where points don't matter. Pretty much. But make sure to read their guys. They'll be in Tampa for this upcoming game. Make sure to read their coverage for NJ.com/Eagles. Bye week is the following week, so we may do a best of. We may just replay this one if you want to, and who knows? We may cut up some stuff. I don't know, but we'll be the bye week, and we'll go from there. So for Bob and Cayden, I'm Chris. Everybody have a good one. See ya.